Aha! Hello ADD fam, how you doing? So today I'm going to tell you about this rad badass fight that I seen in the club. This isn't on any of my fight videos. How I overlooked and forgot about this fight in particular is beyond me. But as I've discussed, years of addiction kind of fucked my memory up a little bit. You know, so my memory's nowhere near as good as it used to be, and it comes with age as well. So, as I discussed, in my day and in my prime, wrestling was a big thing, right? Fake wrestling. I grew up in Marietta, which is right outside, 20 minutes outside Atlanta, and we've always been like, fake wrestling's always been a big thing here, right? For being the South, for one. For two, a lot of those organizations are here. So I've met a lot of fake wrestlers over the years. I've known a lot of fake wrestlers over the years. For one, I said a story. Dusty Rhodes used to live right next to my good friend Dan. I have a story about one of his family members stealing from him and a friend of mine. And along with that, there's a slew of fake wrestlers that have grown up and are here, right? This goes back to my prime when I used to go to in and out of the bars. Big Papa Pump used to live real close to me. The guy I talked about, Bone Man, he knows Big Papa Pump. He lives in Ackworth. I lived right on the border of Ackworth at one time, and Bone Man was my neighbor at one time. I moved into a house right next to his. Another story, and he stole from me. Okay. Well, he's always driving by Big Papa Pump's house, and so they get to meet and talking one day. Like I said, Big Papa Pump lives like a mile or two from where I used to live and where Bone Man lived at the time. So he met and knew Big Papa Pump. And just coincidentally, a few years at this time, it might have been a few years before this, I used to see Big Papa Pump all the time. He used to park in the same parking lot that I did in Buckhead. We used to party in Buckhead was a big deal in my prime, right? So, as I discussed before, I used to hang out at a bar. One of the hottest clubs in Buckhead was World Bar, and I knew all of the barbacks and doormen. I knew all the guys that worked there. My friends knew them, and it hooked me up, where I could go in this bar and drink all night for like $5 and a joint. I could even like give girls drinks and shit. Like bartender would make whatever, I'd say, give me 5 fuck me blues or whatever it was, whatever girls asked for. We'd party, and in these places were a lot of these fake wrestlers, right? So a good friend of mine, a guy we went to school with, Chase Tatum, R.I.P. Chase. Chase is not with us any longer. But I used to skate with Chase when I was 15, 16, right? Right before I went to rehab, I was skateboarding with Chase. He lived in a friend of mine, Brad King's neighborhood. So Chase was a friend of mine, a friend of a lot of ours. We went to school with, and he was just a fat kid growing up, coming through school, right? And but Chase was a nice guy, and he had a lot of friends, and I'm still friends with his brother. His brother's, I'm still friends with him on Facebook, Colin. The guy that I'm talking about is Chase Tatum. His brother's Colin Tatum. Their dad was the sheriff in Smokey and the Bandit 3, right? So their dad had, like these kind of connections or whatever. So Chase, after high school, started working out, and I have to be honest about it. I am with it all. Chase started taking steroids. Well, he started working the door at World Bar. There was World Bar and another club that was even better, Mako's, in those days, right? And Mako's was like the hottest club in Buckhead at the time. And all the fake wrestlers went there, like celebs in Atlanta went there. It was the hottest nightclub. Everybody in there was eating eggs and selling, buying rolls at the time. This was a hot club that we went to every weekend. I met Raven. Raven was a fake wrestler on TV. Well, Chase started working the doors at Mako's and World Bar. And I hadn't seen him in many years. And now I see him, and he's a giant, right? His legs are, one of his legs is big around as my waist, right? Like, he went from just being this fat kid to, taking roids and turned into a monster. You can look it up. Chase Tatum. So, I'm watching TV. Let me see, this is right before I met my wife, so I was probably about 25, 26, and I moved in with this guy and his mom, right? And this guy liked to watch fake wrestling. I didn't care much for it, but that's what was on the TV at the time. We're watching fake wrestling, and I see Chase on TV. I'm like, blown away. And he only lasts about a second. He gets something or other. He gets deboed. He gets knocked out of the ring. But I didn't know that he had a bunch of other fights just recently, like this past year. I looked him up and saw other wrestling matches that he was in. So like I said, I was friends with him. A lot of us that I went to school with were friends with him. And he died. We're not sure of what. But like I said, I'm still friends with his brother still to this day. So in these days, Chase worked the door at these hot clubs. And I spoke about it. I got in a fight with this guy at Kroger. This guy was picking on me, and I wound up kicking his ass in front of all of Kroger. I worked at Kroger, and this kid came in and pushed me, and my manager saw it and let me clock out, and I went and fought this kid in front of all the people in front of Kroger one day, right? And it's in my fights video. And that guy was Matt Anderson. I didn't know it. I just found out like a few months ago. I ran into someone and told me his name was Matt Anderson. He pushed me, and I got the best of him. I seen him a couple of years later. He worked at this bar right there. I've told the story right when you come off 285, and which I just happen to be at now. 285 Roswell Road, like I mentioned, is where Gangland is. You would get off the highway and go one side of the highway, and you would get off, and that would be Gangland, or you could go to the other side, going towards the Chattahoochee River. And as soon as you cross the highway, there used to be two major bars right there, American Pie, and I don't know the name of the other one across the street from it. But like I said, when I was in my 20s, this were the happening spots of Atlanta. So I run into Matt Anderson years later after this fight. This fight happened when I was like 16. I run into him at like 22, 23. I'm out bar hopping, and he's working the door. And we see each other, and, we don't have no beef now. Says, hey, whatever. And he's the same now. He's a beast. He's been taking steroids. This guy that whooped his ass, he's now 3, 4, 5 times as big. He was bigger than me then, but he was a monster now, right? From the steroids. And lo and behold, I just found out that his dad was either Ole or Arn Anderson. Those were a fake wrestling guru pair in WCW days on TV. Like I said, I just found out that his dad was Ole or Arn, whatever, Anderson. I just found that out, I didn't know that way back when. My buddy Shane, I speak of, is friends with him, knows all these people. A lot of my friends do, but those are just little backstories, right? So like I said, I knew a lot of guys that were connected to fake wrestling, and parents were connected to fake wrestling and movie shit, And so, like I said, They were both working the door. I don't know that Matt ever did fake wrestling or not. Like I said, we fought and I kicked his ass. And he turns out to be a somebody, and I didn't know it back then. There was also, Matt also was friends with Gene Wilson. Gene Wilson is the son of Orlando Wilson, the famous fisherman, right? If you know if you're close to my age, you'll know what I'm talking about. Orlando Wilson, the famous fisherman, he's got a big house. He lives like a mile from my parents. So, my son's calling, but I'm not going to answer. So, Gene, like I said, he was another one of these snobby rich kids. Dad was a famous fisherman. He had a Saline Mustang when we were all 16. Just little backstories and backlogs to a lot of this shit. So, like I said, in my 20s, I was always seeing, there was always fake wrestlers out in Buckhead. Guys that were on TV. Marcus Bagwell, I have a lot of connections and friends. He was Buff Bagwell, Buff the Stuff, or Buff whatever. He was a famous fake wrestler. He went to Shane, my friend Shane knows him. Shane went to school with him. I went to Lassiter, but Shane and Buff Bagwell went to Sprayberry. So did Mark Anderson, Matt Anderson, and so did a lot of other people. But anywho, like I said, a lot of these people were on TV, and new people that were on TV. And in those days, what's his name? Big Papa Pump, Rick Steiner, and I'm friends with him on Facebook. I met him through a good friend of mine, Doug Lay. Shout out Doug Lay. Doug's a badass. Doug was like our team captain, badass in football and in wrestling. Doug went to state. Doug knows a lot of famous people from wrestling at state every year. He's friends with Randy Couture, if you know who that is. He's a famous UFC fighter. Through Doug's site, I wind up running into the Steiner brothers. Rick, and I forgot his other names, Steiner. They were, like I said, they're fake wrestlers, and they were on TV in our days. And so Steiner used to park in the same parking lot that me and my wife parked at. These are in the days when I worked for a doctor also, and was going out to Bucket every weekend and popping X pills every weekend. And so I was seeing Rick Steiner he was getting there the same time as me every weekend. We parked in the same parking lot, and he'd get out, and if you don't know who that is, look him up. Like, he had like the biggest arms, ever at that point. He had huge, enormous, sickening, steroid arms. And he'd be getting out, and he would be swinging his arms and shit, and growling like a bear, making like roar noises. And he was known to snort an ounce of cocaine on Friday and Saturday night and go out and get in fights. Like, this wasn't on accident with him. This is what he set out to do, right? To get all geeked up and go fight. So they were always fighting in the clubs. I was always seeing these guys dealing with the police, seeing them bloody every weekend. Like I said, they were all hanging out. All these fake wrestlers used to hang out in all the bars in Buckhead and Atlanta in my prime. I run into a lot of them. Raven was a fake wrestler. He was always in Mako's. I talked to this lady that was like an executive to fake wrestling, and I talked to this chick that was way high up in that, and was there with Raven and another fake wrestler. The other one wasn't as popular as Raven was. These were like kind of celebrities at that time, right? So in these days, like I said, I'm running into all these kind of guys every weekend and seeing them all, partying and getting stupid. And so one night, there's this one guy, right? And he was in that crowd. He ran with that crowd, right? I kept seeing this guy. He worked the doors at Mako's, at World Bar. So we weren't friends, but we knew who each other was, right? So I seen this guy, right? He used to work the doors at the bars, right? So that's how I recognized him. Then after that, I still would run into him. I ran into him at Piedmont Park during one of those festivals. I ran into him a few times, right? And then I see this guy in a magazine. Nothing, no big deal magazine. He was just in like one of these he was amongst like a bunch of fake wrestlers, right? And I'm not gonna say like he was, he wasn't no major big deal, but he was a somebody, right? He wasn't a nobody, but he was, like I said, he was a somebody, but not a big deal. But I seen him in a magazine, and so this guy, I saw him at Piedmont Park during a pot fest, and he had two badass hot chicks with him. You could tell they were strippers. And so I would start, and after Buckhead closed down, Buckhead used to be a wild, crazy place in the 90s, right? And probably much before. There's like a 5-mile radius of nothing but bars, and thousands and thousands of people are there, partied there on the weekends, and there's always fights in the streets. I mean, always, every weekend. You put thousands of people around each other, thousands of drunks around each other. Guys just fight, for rah rah rah, and to get girls' attention and all this kind of shit showing out. I seen a lot of fights in those days. I was in a lot of fights in those days. But like I said, the guy that I had seen around town now, I seen him with some badass stripper chicks at Piedmont Park. Saw him working the door. Saw him somewhere else. And then, so by the time that I seen him, now I'm seeing him at Back Streets. Okay, I talked about Back Streets. It was a place, it's a gay bar, a gay club, all open all night, all weekend. I mean, like, it never shuts, right? So it starts from, like, Friday and whenever, never closes, right? So you go to this bar, and half the time you're rolling and shitting there partying all night, and you go in and it's dark, and you walk out and it's daylight, right? This place is open literally all weekend. It never shuts, People are still in there, Saturday morning after partying all night, and it, like I said, it never shuts down. So there's people and drugs from Friday till Sunday, whenever they close Sunday. I've walked out of there before at 9 o'clock in the morning and shit on Sunday morning. So this was, crazy, you could imagine now. This one of the hottest clubs in Atlanta, and everyone, all the strippers and shit like that from Atlanta are going there because it's after hours, and it's the hottest gay club. It's a gay club now, but it's still one of the hottest clubs because you can walk, like I mentioned before, you can walk in there and get ecstasy in 5 minutes. I've literally kept my car running with my brother-in-law TJ sitting out in the car in the parking lot in like a valet spot where I'm not even supposed to park. I've left my car sitting there running, and it guaranteed that in that amount of time I would, get X and be back and move without getting a ticket. That's how crazy the place was. So there was all the time crazy shit going on in this place. Now you can imagine. It's a gay club, so you've got one of the biggest dance floors in Atlanta. You got like a couple of hundred, maybe 300 to 500, maybe not that much. At least 250 guys out there dancing, right? Hardly any chicks, but there is places in there, it's crazy. And like I said, after 2, 3 in the morning, all the strippers go there. So it's a wild wild place, right? They're doing drugs in the bathroom. Like I said, you can walk in there and get any kind of drug that you could imagine. Anything, literally. You could walk in there and get. There's it's in the heart of Atlanta in Midtown, so there's a bunch of crack dealers that hang out right outside the parking lot. As soon as you park, you're being propositioned for drugs, for crack. One night I got out of my car, and this is one of the times that I had parked and left my brother-in-law, so he wasn't with me. I get out and I'm walking on the sidewalk, and this guy comes up and he says, "Want crack? Want crack?" And I said, "Nah, I'm good, man. I'm all right." And he's showing me his shit, and I just look down, and then I say, "Okay," I shake my head and I start walking. He said, "Oh, you're not gonna buy none?" And then this was a tall black guy with this crazy fro hair, right? I said, "No, man." He had like these big, huge cookies, like a $400 piece slab, right? And he's, trying to get me to buy some. I tell him, "No, I'm not interested." And then this big, tall, crazy looking black guy with a big old fro, right? You could tell, mad crackhead. And these two young guys come up, and he tells them, "Get him!" And I say, "Oh, fuck." And they chase me. They're chasing me now. They literally chased me to the door. I wasn't going to sit and fight the two or the three of them. For all I know, they had guns and knives. And I was outnumbered. So this happened right there in front of this place. Just like I said, I got chased from these crack dealers for me not buying crack. This is how helliness this place is, right? Inside, outside, it's just, drug haven. So you get in this place, and there's a couple hundred gay guys dancing on the first floor. Pool tables, places where people are rolling and hanging out, shooting pool. And then there's an upstairs, and the upstairs is more for people that are rolling. They've got a gate, they got a drag show up there. So they got a drag show going on. And if you haven't never seen that, that's pretty fucking wild. The first time I ever heard the song, and I thought that this was a drag that made the song, because this was right when this song come out. I hadn't heard it yet. My pussy, my back, my neck, my back, my pussy, and my crack, my neck, my back, right? So the first time I ever heard that song, this tranny was singing to it, dancing. I didn't know until I heard it later on. It was someone else's song. I thought it was her song, or her song. That was crazy watching tranny shows, but it was interesting. There's a lot of freaks in there, all kind of freaky, gothic people, and just another one of these just way out there kind of sights and scenes, right? And all these fake wrestlers party here too, just by chance, right? So the guy I'm talking about, who I'm running into now, I keep bumping into, he does steroids. He's like a fill-in for fake wrestlers. I don't know his name. I only know him by face. I only know by, that guy. So I'm at, I get to back streets one night, and there's not a lot of people there yet. I think it's like, I'm not sure, 10, 11, maybe 12. It doesn't get really bumping until, 2, 3 in the morning. It's packed, right? Even by midnight, it's not even really packed yet, right? People going in there are all-nighters, you know what I'm saying? But at, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, there's a freaking line out the door a mile long, right? So, of trannies and gays and, all that. Gothic trannies and gays. So it's just a wild bunch that goes there, right? Well, I see this guy, okay, I'm talking about, that keep bumping into, fake wrestler guy, steroids, about 6 foot, 6'1", 250, 260, 270. Built like a brick shithouse, right? Solid dude. Way bigger than me. Like I said, 6 foot with muscles and steroids. Okay? I see him this night. This is when the tight t-shirts was in, and I wore them too, even, silky tight shirts. So you could see how big this guy was, because he's always wearing these silky tight shirts, right? So I'm going up the stairwell, and I'm like the only person that gets to see this. Like maybe 2 or 3 other people, maybe. I don't think anyone got to see it. For some reason, it wasn't that crowded yet, but there was a stairwell that goes upstairs, right? And when you get upstairs, that stairwell, the top of the stairwell is like there's like a small, almost like like a sitting area, right? What do you call it? Like a foyer. As soon as you come up the top of the stairs, a foyer. The guy's walking up the top of the stairs. He's 6 foot tall, built like a brick shithouse. He walks up the stairs, and I promise, not exaggeration, not a bit. Once again, one of these crazy, crazy shit shows that thank God I got to watch. He's going up the stairs, and he elbows this black guy, right? Accidentally shoulder checks this big black guy. Guy says, "Excuse me, fuck you," or something. Fuck you, fuck you. There was 2 black guys, okay? He's 6 foot tall. The 2 black guys were like 6'5", right? Both of them were mad big, right? Crazy, steroid competition crazy big. The 2 of them. Both of them were bigger than him. Taller and muscular. Both of them had him outdone. He sat there and slugged it out with him and beat the living shit out of the both of them right there in the stairwell, right on the stairs. They're fighting on the stairs. Guys are tumbling down the stairs, and he's whop, whop, whop. And if you've ever heard a real sound of smashing bones, you were hearing smashing bones. Dude was hitting him so hard. Had to have been like did boxing and shit on the side. Dude was sitting there lighting them both up at the same fucking time. Neither one was doing shit. I'm talking, if you've heard someone really strong hit someone else, it's got like thump, it's got bass to it. Whop, 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 whop. Like all these crazy ass sounds, and dude's fucking just tearing them both up, limb for limb. They ain't doing shit to him, and he's fucking decking both of them in the face. He hits him once or twice, drops him. Hits other dude once or twice, other dude's starting to get up, drops him again. Other dude's starting to gets up, drops him again. I don't know how I missed that fight in all my fighting videos, because that is the best fight I've ever seen. That's even better than the fight in jail. 1 6 foot white guy beat the living hell out of 2 6'5", built like brick shithouse, 2 huge ass black guys, way bigger than him. If you would have sized them up, you would have said there's no way in hell he'd have beat either one of them. He beat them both single-handedly, handed them their ass right there in the stairwell. That was like I said, my memories got to be real bad, because I don't know how in the fuck I forgot that one with all the fight videos. That was the best fight I've ever seen. Dude handed 2 gigantic monsters their ass. I've never seen anything like it, still to this day. Not on TV, not in real life. The sounds and the